By the end of the lesson, you should be able to solve quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula and by completing the square.
Hi, Deborah. Are you ready to pick up where we left off yesterday?
Absolutely.
Great, let's go in then.
By the end of the lesson, you should be able to solve quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula and by completing the square. There's a formula you can use to solve a quadratic equation, which you might find quicker and easier to use. We usually only use this method when we can't find the factors of a quadratic equation. But there's no reason why you can't use it at any other time. Do you want to try it?
Well, I'm always willing to try out something quicker and easier.
We call this formula the quadratic formula. All we need to do in order to solve for x is write the equation in its simplest standard form. Identify a, b, and c in the equation, substitute into the formula, and solve for x. The positive and negative signs give us the two solutions, or roots of the quadratic equation. One when using a plus sign and one when using a minus sign.
That sounds easy enough. Let me give it a try.
Okay, you can try it with this equation on your worksheet.
Okay, here goes. The equation is already in simplest standard form, which means that a equals 2, b equals 3, and c equals -7. Now I substitute that into the formula. Minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a, which gives me minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 65, all divided by 4. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. You could leave your answer in surd form like this, or you could use your calculator to find the answer as a decimal. What you do here will depend on what form you were asked to give the answer in the original question. For this example, I'd like you to find the value of x to 2 decimal places.
So if I put that into my calculator, I get that x equals 1.27 or x equals -2.77.
Just one thing to take note of is when what goes inside the surd or square root sign is negative. This means that you won't be able to find an answer to the question, and therefore there will be no solution. When you try and put this into the calculator, your calculator will give you an error, so don't be surprised. Let me show you what I mean with this example. First, we need to write this in simplest surd form. Then I identify a, b, and c in the equation. Then substitute the values into the formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. That gives me -3 plus or minus the square root of -51, all divided by 10. We cannot take the square root of a negative number,
So we say that the value of x is undefined.
Here are some practice examples for you to try on your own.
I'm getting the hang of this. Let's try another one.
Go ahead.
Hold on, I haven't seen this before. I know two methods for solving a quadratic, by factorizing and by using the quadratic equation. But what does this solve by completing the square?
Completing the square is another method we use to solve a quadratic equation. In this case though, we only use the method when specifically asked to. This method combines the principle that you can do anything to an equation as long as you do it to both sides as a whole, and the methodology of factorizing the difference of squares in order to solve for the unknowns in a quadratic equation.
Wow, can you show me this method?
Yes, of course. Let me use this example here. As always, the first step is to make sure that the equation is in its simplest standard form. In this equation, we need to first take out a common factor of 2 and divide both sides by it. Next, we take the constant over to the right-hand side of the equation. It's important at this point to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is positive 1. If it's not, you'll have to divide each term by this coefficient. In this equation, the coefficient of x squared is already 1, so we can move on to the next step. In this step, we complete the square. To do this, we need to multiply b by a half and square it. Which gives us 25. We then add it to both sides. You can do anything to an equation as long as you do it to both sides as a whole. Which gives us a perfect square trinomial here on the left-hand side, which I'm going to write as the perfect square. We now have a bracket squared equal to a number on the right-hand side. Simply take square roots on both sides. Remember, when you square root both sides, you must get a negative and a positive answer. In this case, you get x minus 5 equals to 6, or x minus 5 equals to negative 6. These two equations are solved separately to give the two final answers.
I think I've got that, but I think I might need to do a few more on my own if I want to get the hang of it.
I think you're right, Deborah. The more practice you get, the better you'll get at it. Here are some practice examples for you to try on your own. Do you think you'll manage the rest of your worksheet on your own, Deborah?
Yes, I'll manage. Thank you so much for taking time out to help me. I think I better get going now. My transport might be here very soon.
Anytime, Deborah.